Hello students, in this class we are going to learn about BootStrap, right? So let us learn what is BootStrap. Now BootStrap is a free and open source front-end development framework for creation of website and web applications, right? So it is a free open source, like anybody can use it. You need not to pay any amount to use BootStrap, right? It is completely free and open source as well. It is a front-end development tool, right? There's one more word which is mentioned here called framework. Now, till now we studied jQuery, JavaScript and all those things. jQuery was a library, but here we are telling that it is a framework. So in this class we'll understand what exactly is a library and a framework. But before that, let us continue with the BootStrap. BootStrap framework is built on HTML, CSS and JavaScript to facilitate the development of responsive mobile first sites and applications, right? So this basically BootStrap framework is built on these three concepts: HTML, CSS and JavaScript, right? So these three concepts are used to build the BootStrap. This was created by Mark Otto and one more person. So they created BootStrap framework to facilitate the development of responsive pages, mobile applications. For example, if there's a difference between a laptop web application and a mobile application, right? Why? Because the screen size of a laptop or a PC is little big compared to mobile phone. So this was basically used to create different versions of websites. Maybe you can call it as responsive, right? So responsive pages can be built using the BootStrap. Now let us learn about JavaScript library and JavaScript framework, and let us see what is the difference between them. Now JavaScript library is a library of pre-written JavaScript that allows for easier development of JavaScript based applications, especially for Ajax and other web-centric technologies. Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So basically, what is a library? A library is a collection of elements, or you can say that pre-written JavaScript code will be there in a library, right? For it is used for efficient JavaScript based applications. Basically it is especially used for Ajax and other web-centric technologies as well, ASP.NET and all those things. But JavaScript library consists just like how in a normal library you have collection of books. The same way JavaScript library has a collection of elements, collection of styling elements. All those things JavaScript will be there in a library. Now what is a JavaScript framework? Now JavaScript framework are collections of JavaScript code libraries that provide developers with pre-written JS code to use for routine programming features and tasks. Literally a framework to build websites or web applications around. Now a simple difference which we can find out using these definitions are: JavaScript library is a collection of pre-written JavaScript code, but the JavaScript framework is the collection of libraries itself. Now library can be one or two, right? So but in framework, for example, a BootStrap framework consists of hundreds of libraries of JavaScript, right? So if I can tell you, JavaScript framework is a superset of JavaScript library. There are collection of libraries, and these collection of libraries can be called as a framework, right? The JavaScript framework. So this is a major difference between a JavaScript library and a JavaScript framework. So let me tell you an example of how can we differentiate library and a framework. For example, suppose we'll take an example of a home and a school or a college. Now what happens in home? There's no much rules that you will have to sit here, or you will have to write your homework here itself, you will have to sit on a bench. No, there's nothing like that in your home, right? So you can come to home, you can remove your shoes there. I know so many of you would do that, right? So take your shirt off, put it somewhere else. You don't wash your clothes, or you don't properly hand wash, and all those things happen in home right now. But in framework, for example, I'm giving an example of home is a library here, and a framework is a school or college here. But in school there are few rules, few restrictions which are there. For example, you cannot sit on some other place, or you cannot roam somewhere during the class. You'll have to sit on a place in a bench properly, and the marker or the duster should be near the board over there. You have to rub the board, and all those things would be there in a school, right? So there are a lot of restrictions in a school or a college, but in home there is no much restriction. So if we compare that with library and a framework, library has few rules, not many rules, but in framework there are hundreds of rules. Why? Because this is a collection of library, that is why you have more rules. Since library is just a pre-written code, there are no much rules here, right? So this is one more difference between a library and a framework. In this diagram, we can see libraries was a framework. You can see your code, library, and all those things are there. You can see framework contains the library here, right? So framework contains the library. I told you lot of libraries come together, form a framework. The same way, framework contains the library here, right? So but when you're coding or when you're writing a web page code, you should call a library. For example, in jQuery we saw that we called selector.hide, selector.show, selector.slide out, slide up, selector.slide toggle, mouse up, mouse enter, right? So all these things you have to call it. Like whenever you want the code to perform, you will call that particular library and do the program, correct? But in framework you cannot do that. Yes, you will write the program, but what happens in framework is that you cannot change anything in your program. Why? Because this is a pre-written code collection of libraries. It will be very difficult for you to change the codes. For example, if you want to change particular code, you'll have to go to the framework, see all the libraries, see where actually you want to change, search all the libraries, and it is a very hectic task, right? But in library, what you can do is you can just write here and you can execute the code whenever you want. But here instead you will call the library in your code, but when you're using a framework, the framework will call your code. The framework will call your code. That means you cannot do any changes in your program, right? So there are particular statements given. For example, class equals developer 1. All those things are already pre-written in a library. You will have to call that particular library and do your programs, but you cannot change that library name. Why? Because it is already there, and if you want to change also, it becomes a very hectic task. Why? Because you will have to go there, you will have to search for that library particularly, and then you will have to change that. So that is why that this is the major difference, that if you are using a library in jQuery, for example, you will type the code whenever you want, you can execute it. Even in framework, the framework will call your code, right? So you are not calling it, your framework will call your code, right? So that is the difference there. A library is a set of reusable functions by computer programs. So that's what I told you now. Framework is a piece of code that dictates the architecture of your project and aids in programs. So basically a framework is an architecture of your project, and library is a set of functions which are there, right? So that is the difference between that. Now when you are using a library, you are in full control of that particular method. For example, if you want to call a method called hide or show, you can write it whenever you want. So you have that full control over that library. But here in framework, the code never calls the framework. Instead, the framework will itself call your code, right? So that is one major difference. Now in library, if you use a library, it is incorporated seamlessly into existing projects. That means it is very easily incorporated into the projects, and you can access using an API there when you use a library. Now here in framework, you cannot be seamlessly incorporated into an existing project. Instead, it can be used when a new project is created. Now if you want to add the functions in an existing project, you can add that using a library functions. But when you are having an existing project, you cannot add a framework to that existing project. You will have to create a new project to add the framework, right? So next thing is in library, they are more important in program linking and binding process. Libraries are very important in program linking. Linkage between two programs or linkage between the process, all these things can very easily happen, very important in library. But in framework, they provide a standard way to build and deploy applications. Just like I told you before, you cannot add a framework directly to an existing project. You will have to create a new project, then deploy applications, right? So that is about the framework. Next example, if I give you in a library, jQuery is called a library, JS library, and it is simplifies the DOM manipulation, right? So what is an example of BootStrap? What is an example of a framework? BootStrap is an example. You have AngularJS. AngularJS is a framework. You have Django framework, right? So all these things are framework. jQuery is a library, right? So now we just learnt about what is BootStrap and what is the difference between a library and a framework, right? So how to actually use a BootStrap now? Now BootStrap, I already told you, it is a framework built on HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So these three consists a framework that is called as a BootStrap. Now how to exactly download it to your system and what are the ways of doing it? Now first thing you have to go is to the official website, that is www.getbootstrap.com, right? So let us go to this website and check what are the options available. I'm in my Chrome browser now, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just type getbootstrap.com. So you can see when I open this website, there is a home page which is available which says build fast responsive sites with Bootstrap, correct? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to see what exactly is there. You can see get started or download, you can see installation, you can see documents which are regarded to install, you have Bootstrap CDN as well, right? So let me tell all of these things. You have icons here, so all these things, official themes are also available. So let me do one thing. I have to download the Bootstrap to my system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the download button here. So once I click on the download button, you can find compiled CSS and JS. So the different versions of actually CSS and JS which can be deployed in your system. So you can see compiled and minified. You can go and see the comparisons. If you want to download it, just click on the download button. The whole Bootstrap will be downloaded to your system. This is the compiled and minified CSS and JavaScript. The whole will be downloaded here. If you want to check, just open it. You can see whole Bootstrap is there. CSS files are there. All this is a framework, right? So you can download it directly. But what is the problem when you download? For example, if you want to if you have downloaded a Bootstrap framework, you will have to keep it in a folder, right? So what happens when you are doing a program? Maybe the path would not be correct. No, that will not be implemented. That will not be called. So that is a problem when you download a particular Bootstrap framework or any framework. That is why I'm going to use a CDN. Now you can see there are source file as well. If you want to download the source, click on the source. Entire source files will be downloaded here. Next you have CDNs. Now CDNs, I told you already, CDN is a content delivery network. It will fetch the data from the server to your program. So that is what CDN does. Now you can say Bootstrap CDN is there. You can find package managers. You even using package managers like npm install bootstrap, the whole Bootstrap framework will be installed in your program, in your system. You can find yarn also, right? In Node.js, if you are using Node.js, you can use yarn package to download Bootstrap, Ruby gems, Composer, right? So all these things you get, correct? All these things you can be used to download your Bootstrap to your system. But right now, since I'm doing programs, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to this part called introduction. When I click on introduction, it will say you quick start, CSS links will be given, Bootstrap links will CDNs will be given, JS CDN is also given. You will have to go and copy each and entire thing. So what I'm going to do is, when you scroll down a little bit more, you can find a starter template which is already available for you. So what you can do, you can just copy the starter template, copy. Then you can find all the links are already given. You can see Bootstrap CSS is already given here. You can see jQuery, you can see popper.min.js, you can see Bootstrap, correct? So CSS is also given, Bootstrap JS is also given. So you can just copy this. This is a starter template. Right now you can go to VS Code and you can paste this. So I am in the VS Code right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the folder first. So let me open this folder. So I have opened the folder. Now close all of these things. Right now we don't require it. So I'm going to create a new file called bootstrap.html. Now I've opened a new file called bootstrap.html. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste the entire thing. So you can see entire thing will be pasted here. Entire starter template has been pasted here, right? So this is how you can include, everything is there here. You can see the CSS links is there. You can see the JavaScript libraries, JavaScript framework is already installed right now using your content delivery network, right? So let us go to the website and check what are the options available and how can we actually use Bootstrap in our system. Now first of all, let me go and see responsive meta types, box sizing, all these things are already given. If you copy the starter templates, all the things will be directly installed, directly copied in your program. So don't worry about it. So now what I'm going to do, when I scroll down, you can find something called layout, content, components, utilities, extend. All these things are about the Bootstrap. Now, if I want to see what are the options available, if I want to see what are the elements which are available, if I want to style elements, what exactly we can do in Bootstrap. So let me go to this thing called components here. So when you go to this components, you can scroll down here, you can find alerts, just like JavaScript alert, there was an alert box, right? So here you can find alerts in Bootstrap, the different kind of alerts, styling alerts you can find a badge, breadcrumb, buttons, button group, card, carousel, collapse. Carousel is nothing but a slideshow on your web page. drop downs, forms, input groups, jumbotron, lists, media object, navbars, pagination. You have popovers, progress bar, scroll up C, spinners, toasts, tooltips, right? You have so many other things. So what we are going to do in this class is we are going to see the entire thing. We are going to study each one by one and let us understand how this works, right? So now I'll go to alerts. I'm in alerts. Now what does this alert do? Alerts provide contextual feedback messages for a typical user actions with a handful of available and flexible alert messages. Now, when you scroll down, you can see some examples here, right? So these are alert JQuery plugins. So you can see a simple primary alert, right? So all these things are available. You can check, you can use any of this. Now how to use it? You don't have to code anything for this. Everything will be available in the official website. You will just have to scroll down a little bit more and you can find all the codes which are available here. You can see the class alert primary. Now this class alert primary will be contained in the BootStrap framework, and if you want to see that framework, you can open the downloaded file. You can see all the file. Let me go and check that particular file. So here I have downloaded this, right? So let me go and extract this first. Let me extract it to not desktop. Let me extract it here itself. So I'm going to extract it here. So once I extract, just go back. Yeah, let me extract it to BootStrap. Yeah, so the files have been extracted. So I'll open this file first. So here, when you go to CSS or JS, you can see all this min JSS file. So if you want to just see that, you can just open with Visual Studio Code. So when you open with Visual Studio Code, you can find entire thing here, right? So see, there are so many lines of code which has already been written by the creators. You can see there are around 7,033 lines of code in a single file. Now like this, you have so many files here. Map files you have, JavaScript files you have, correct? So here what happens when you use this particular code is this particular class will be called from here. You can see scroll up, see all these things are here, alert, right? So all these things will be called from here directly to your program. Just like how you call a JavaScript file, how you call jQuery library, similarly it will call from here. So let us not use this, let us remove this first because it is very confusing. So let us use a CDN for it. Now let me go back and let me just take this div, copy this here in my body, I'm gonna paste it. So what happens now, since I have included all of these things, the output should be alert, right? So let us go back and check the output. Alright, to see the output you can open with live server. So when you open with live server, you can see the alert command is already here. It has already been pasted, correct? So there are different versions of alert as well. You can see here you can see the minimum difference. You can see alert primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info. So you can add this as well. When you add this, so let us see the difference. I'm gonna add this as well, correct? So let me go back, check the output. You can see one more alert. The color background is already changed, correct? So entire thing will be available here for you. So whatever you want, you can just copy it here, paste it there and do your programs, correct? So for example, if I want a warning, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change here itself. In this secondary, I'm going to change warning, right? So when I do this, you can see the warning alert will be given, right? This is a warning alert. Now if this is a primary alert, this is a warning alert. So like that you have info. If you just want to see the output of this here only, you can see the output here, right? So whatever is given here, you can just see here, dark is there, light is there, correct? So entire all the things is similar. You can see role of that is alert, simple, the role of that is alert. But you can see entire thing, primary, these are all the different classes which are already there in a BootStrap framework. So you can use all of these things in your program, right? So let me use success as well here. So let me show you exactly how you can use all of these things, right? So here I'm going to paste it once again. Again I'm going to see the output. You can see three different things here, correct? So let me go, right? So here you can see the outputs, right? So when I go back and check one more, if you want, you can directly put danger, warning, info, light, dark. So there are different types of things available, but if you want to change all of these things, this is a very hectic task. I told you already, that is what is the difference. Here you cannot change anything. Why? Because if you want to change also, you have to go back there, you have to change the styling commands there, you have to change the CSS commands there. Correct? So this is a hectic task. That is why you can you directly use this, or you can use jQuery, you can use all of these things here, right? So this is about alert. So when you scroll down, if you want, you can give a different color as well. You can see use dot alert link utility class to quickly provide matching colors. Now how to provide matching colors? You can just add this entire, for example, I'm gonna add this entirely here for the next one. So after this I'm gonna add this. So when I click on it, it will stay on the same page. Why? Because you have given hash here. So let me go back. So when I click on it, example link, it will stay on the same page. If I want it to go to google.com, so https just www.google.com, control save, go back to this output. When I click on it, it will be redirected to Google. So this is how you can directly use anchor tags here as well. You can see the anchor tag, right? So this is a common HTML element. You can directly use it inside this, correct? But you cannot change all of these things, right? You cannot give prime, go see the output, there's nothing, there's only blank space. Why? Because this class does not match with your Bootstrap framework. That is why you have to give primary there. Then if you see, there's a background here, correct? So this is how you can use Bootstrap. You can use anchor tag here as well, like this. Now there are different options also. Let's go and see. You can see all this different options. If you want primary, secondary, alert with example link and all those things, you can directly give it. Additional content, alerts can also contain additional HTML like headings, paragraph, dividers. Now all these things can also be included. For example, see, they have already included this as well. So how do we just copy this entire thing? Just remove all of these things as of now to see this output. Control save, go back and see the output. Simple. As you can see, the alert command can be used. Headings can also be used inside that alert. Paragraphs can also be used inside it. This is how you can create your web page very easily, right? It is directly available. You just have to copy the code and paste it. Make some little changes on yourself. Maybe if you want something, you can add it here, you can remove it here. All those things you can do it, but you cannot change here. That is very important. You cannot change it here or here. All these things are predefined. You cannot change here. This class you cannot change. But you can do one thing. You can add one more division on your own. Add this class and it works the same. Right, so you can do that. This class is also from the JavaScript framework as well. You have not created an extra framework here. You have not created any style commands or script here. You are taking all the things from here directly and from these three things. All these three things should be there in your program, to include popper.js, to include Bootstrap CSS, to include Bootstrap JS. All these three things are different. So you have to include all these things to make sure that your program works properly, right? So let me go back and check any other alerts are available. Dismissing, right? So all these things are here. If you want to dismiss it, right? So this is dismissing. Now how to dismiss? There's already a button type which is given. Button type equals button, class equals close, data dismiss alert. All these things are predefined, right? So if you want to do that, you can just copy it, come back down. First let me paste it here, control save. Now go back. You can see there's a dismiss button also here, right? So if you had using HTML or CSS, you will have to code for the stylings, you will have to use jQuery, you will have to use JavaScript, right? So all these things you will have to use. Maybe it would become 10 to 15 lines of code. But when you use Bootstrap, it is direct here. You'll just have to add that class, alert, warning, alert, dismissible, fade, show. All these are class. You'll just have to add that class and your program works. Now when I click on it, it fades, right? So why fade? Because I have used fade show here, correct? So this is how you can use alert, right? So different types of alerts also available here. So when I scroll down, JavaScript behavior, what happens? You can use this as well. JavaScript behavior. See, this we have done using the JavaScript. Remember, if you have that, you cannot do it with HTML and CSS. You have to do it with JavaScript. So that is why button class equals close. When you go here, this enable dismissing of an alert via JavaScript, you can type it in your console. When you type it in your console, your program works. So that is also possible, right? So that is there. You can see different methods which are associated with JavaScript in Bootstrap. You can use .alert, .alert of close, .alert of dispose, right? So when you come down, events, you have different events also available. Closed bootstrap .alert, closed, what does this do? This event fires immediately when the close instant method is called. So this is basically used in JavaScript, right? So in console.log you can type these commands and you can check it out how exactly to be done. But right now, since you're doing a front-end development, you can just copy your code, paste it on your program, make some changes on it, just play it, right? So your entire thing will be displayed on your web page and you can easily get it done. So this was about alert. Right, so alert you can use different ways. I just showed you. You can use paragraphs, headings, all these things can be done. Anchor links can be used over there. So the alert. So we have finished about alert now. So now let's just go to the next topic, that is a badge. Now what is a badge? Now badge, documentation and example for badges of a small count, all these things. Now this exactly is a badge. Badge can be large, small. By using the relative font sizing and EM units, we can make sure that it can be responsive. So let us see how exactly we can use. Very simple. You have given example heading, span class, badge secondary of new. So this will create a badge for you guys here like this. This is a badge, right? So this is a badge. There's a text over here and this is a badge, right? So to add that, you can just add all this 6. Let me go back. Control copy, remove this entire thing, just remove this, Control save. Now go back, check the output, you can see there are badges here, correct? So if I want to make some changes, I am gonna give TechWord Labs, Control save, go back, you can see it is TechWord Labs of badge. Inside that badge name you can give some other name. For example, if you want to give TL, Control save, go back and you can see TL is here, correct? So you have created a badge over there, right? So let us see few more options in badges. Yes, this is very important. Badges can be used as a part of links or buttons to provide a counter. Now as you can see, there's a button over here, right? So this button can also be used as a badge. As a badge can be used as a button as well. So you can see button type button, class button primary is the button. Notifications, I have inside the button put notification, then span class is equal to badge light. So this button will be created as a badge, and when you click on that button it can go to anywhere, or if you want it to go to somewhere, you can add a source file there, right? So I'll just copy this, just click on copy. Here I'm gonna add copy, paste. Now go back and check the output, you can find this, right? So click on it, this is a button now. So badge has become a button now, right? So there are different options available. If I want, I can change it to TechWord Labs once again inside here. TechWord Labs, go back. You can see TechWord Labs button has been created inside a badge, right? So here it is 4, right? So if you want to give it as 10 also, you can give any number. Directly it is 10 now, right? So this is exactly like how app will show your notification 1 2 3 4. There are 4, there's an icon here, and then you have 10 5 15 20 the notifications, right? So this is how you can use notification as a badge, right? So next we are going to learn the next badges. You can just learn all these things. Note that depending on how they are used, badges may be confusing for users of screen readers and similar assistive technologies, right? So if I want text, you will have to create properly. See, since don't imagine that you have got all of these things and you can put something and all, right? So do according to your website which you are creating. Don't do it unnecessarily. Add whatever you require. Don't add all of these things and make it clumsy. Add whatever you want and do it. It's just like you have profile, right? We just showed you how you can write the text over there. You can use unread text messages here, right? So all these things you can use. Next we have contextual variation. Now variations of badges, right? So there are basically 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 type of badges available in Bootstrap right now. You can add any of these mentioned modifiers, classes. You will have to just change this name, that's it. You will have to just change this name, that is primary. These are the class names: primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info, light and dark. You'll just have to change this and you'll get it entirely in your program. So let me just add here, Control save. I've added here, go back, you can see entire thing is available here, right? Entire thing is available here. All these are badges, right? So if you want to make it as a link, you can do that as well. How do we do it? You can just add button. If you want button, you can add button, correct? So see, as you can see, all these things are available already. Now if you want to create links for that, I told you to create links. You just have to add this statement, that's it. So let me add this first. Control copy, instead of span, just remove the span, add this, control save, go back. I've added it for the primary, right? So let me go back. You can see I've added it for the primary, sorry, for the secondary from here, right? So I've added it. Let me close this first, control save. Yes, for the secondary I've added. When you click on it, it will be redirect to some other page. Now how to redirect it to some other page? You just have to add https dot your website name, so it will be redirect to that page. Control save. Again, if you want, you can add it for entire thing. So you just have to remove the span here, add the anchor tag here. Simple, right? So next, what do we have? Yes, so this was about your badges, right? So next thing which we are going to learn about is the breadcrumb. Now what is the breadcrumb? Now indicate the current page location within a navigational hierarchy that automatically adds CSS separators via CSS. Now this is a breadcrumb. It is like a long bar where you can find different options if you can give here like this, right? So how do we exactly do it? Everything is already available here. You don't have to go and see the website, and you don't have to code, right? So everything is already available here. So you just have to copy it. I'll remove all of these things now. So just remove this. Now here what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste it, control save. Now go back, see the output. You can see a breadcrumb is added here, right? So when you click on home, it stays on the same page. Why? Because we have used hash, again hash, again hash, right? How hash is there, you can just see here. Hash is here, hash is here, hash is here. If you want to give another website, you can directly give it. You can see these are all the different classes of breadcrumb. You can see there's not only one particularly thing. As you saw in badges, you have primary, secondary, warning, info, dark, light. The same way for every bootstrap element, every bootstrap class, you have different classes inside that. This is the main class, that is breadcrumb. Inside the main class you have item class as well. Inside the item class you have active class as well, right? So there are different options inside a particular class. So you can use whatever things you want and create your programs, right? So this was about breadcrumb. So let me go ahead and scroll it down to see some other variations of breadcrumb. Yes, this is the changing the separator. If you want to change the separator, you can add this as well. It's SVG file is an icon file, so it's particularly a logo or an icon, so you can use SVG format to include icons in your program. So right, so this is about the breadcrumb. Now next thing which comes is the buttons. Now we saw buttons previously, but here we are going to see different types of buttons which are there. Now there are custom button styles for actions in forms, dialogues, and more support for multiple sizes, states, and more. So there are different types of buttons which are available in Bootstrap. So let me go ahead. These are few examples. I just showed you button type, class, button, primary, all these things, right? So let us check. You just have to copy this, copy, come down, remove this. Let us remove this first, paste it, save it, go back and check the output. You can see different button types already available. When you click on it, this stays on the same page. Why? Because you have not given the anchor tag here. If you want to give an anchor tag, you can just add a link and create an anchor tag, right? So you can see primary, secondary, success, all these are different classes inside a button. This is a main class, that is a button. Inside that main class you have button secondary, button success, button danger, button warning, button info, button light, button dark. Correct? So you have different types of options available inside a button. So let us go back and check different options which are there. Now disable text wrapping. If you want to disable text wrapping, you can add .text wrap class to button. Correct? So you can add that as well. Next, button tags. See, I've added an anchor tag, that is class of button primary. href I've already given as here. Now just copy this. Submit button is also there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this first. Right, so this is fun actually, like everything is already available. You can just copy it, paste it, changes are made according to you, then you can just use it. Links, button, input, submit. Now you can see a background has been created, or outside that button there is a layer like an CSS styling. Already all these things are available in this class, so you don't have to make any changes. You just have to make the changes between here, and all those things. All these things are similar. If you just want to add, maybe I'll just gonna add my submit button here. Submit, control save, go back. You can see submit is there. When you click on submit, it goes to submit. Just like that, you can add name. How to add a name? Just come here, my name, control save, go back. You can see name is added. For this particular text, you can add a style. For example, if you want to add a style for this, add a style. I'm gonna use the tag. There's no tag here, right? So I'm gonna use a p tag here. So let me use a p tag here. I'm gonna call the p tag. I'm gonna give background color as red. Control save, go back. You can see the background color has been changed to red now. Okay, so this is how you can use CSS styling inside Bootstrap as well. So there's no thing that when you use a Bootstrap you'll have to only use a Bootstrap. There's nothing like that. You can add your own things as well. When I use a paragraph, it takes a whole statement, whole line. But when I don't use a paragraph, it will not take a whole line. It will just take the part of it. That's it. Okay, so this is the difference between a paragraph and normally writing it. Right, so buttons, you have buttons. Then let us see the variations. Yes, outline buttons. Now this was a background, this was a filling button, like all the colors will be filled in a particular button, but these are the outline buttons. Like I don't want the color to be inside that. I just want the hover function to be activated, and when I go near it, it should perform, it should change its color. So this is an outline button. For Orling you have different colors, right? So that is how this particular class will be used for that. That is the outline class. You can see button. If you don't use outline here, primary will look like this, correct? If you have used button here, sorry, outline here, your button has like this, correct? So let me copy this entire thing, go back, just remove this till here. Don't remove the script tag. Script tag is very important. Control save, go back. You can see the difference, right? So this is a very easy method of, you can see light also here. There's nothing, but when you go there, it is light. You can see this, it has become very easy for web developers or web application creators using Bootstrap, correct? But if you use HTML or CSS, you will have to code for each and every line. You will have to give background colors. You will have to give colors, text aligns, box sizing, border, all these things you will have to give it. But when you are using a Bootstrap, very easily you can just do it, right? One more interesting thing of Bootstrap is that it is responsive. I already told you Bootstrap is used to create responsive pages. Now why responsive pages? Because if I want to show an example, I'll go here. When I just click on this, you can see it entirely came like this. You can see it is responsive. So whenever I increase the size of the screen, it goes like this. Whenever I decrease the size of it, it comes like this. So this is what is called as responsive, right? So entire Bootstrap is responsive. So you don't have to worry about adding box model here or mouse box modeling here. You don't have to worry about that. Entire thing is in the Bootstrap. It will take care of itself, right? So now let us see a few more examples of buttons. Now sizes. Now how to add sizes? To add sizes, you can use this button large. You can see button large. If you want to add small buttons, you can add button small. SM represents small, right? So let us go and check both of these things. Copy this here. After this, we'll paste it. Now same thing for the small. I'm going to do just paste it here. Instead of LG, you can add SM for the small. This is a class which is already there in a Bootstrap framework, right? So go back. You can see large button is here, right? So let me LG. Okay, this should be LG, correct? So now 2 large buttons and 1 small button. So let me change it to small button here because this is SM. Small button, you can see small button is here, correct? So large button, small button. So even if you want to change the button sizes, you can change that. Now when I come down, you can see block level button. Block level button means it takes complete block. This, see, you can see this is only a few things. Only this much of is the button. But if I want the button to be big, I can use block level buttons. To use block level buttons, you can add button block. Copy this, remove all of these things, paste it, copy, save it, go back. You can see this is a block level. Entire page will be taken as a block and your button will be created. Correct? So this is called as a block level button. Right? So next thing we have in buttons is the active state button. Now buttons will appear pressed. Now you can see there's no need to add a class button as they use a pseudo class. This is a pseudo class, right? When I click on it, entire pseudo session will be activated, right? So for that anchor tag is used, anchor tag, href, hash, class button, you have active tag, right? So when I click on it, it changes. That is what is active. We already learned about active, hover and focus. Here we have used active, right? So you can see all these things are there. Copy this, paste it, save it, go back, check the output. When I click on it, this will be activated. Previously when I go on it, it is activated. That is the focus. Sorry, not the focus. It is the hover. But when I click on it, this will be activated. That means it is active, right? So this is how you can use active here as well. So next come disable state. Now disable state means that this is a button where even if you press on it, even if you go on that, it will not do anything. The button is disabled. To use a button disabled, you can use this button type class button disabled. So when you use this, the button is disabled. Copy it, paste it after this, control save, go back. Now this is a disabled button. That means, see, you can see the difference. When I click on it, this performs or this will be performed, right? But here, if you come on it, this does nothing. Why? Because we have used disabled here, disabled class. So that is why this is a disabled function. So you cannot use any button commands over here, right? So this was about disabled. So next you have tab index and all those things which are available, right? So you can use any of the things in your program. See, one more time I'm telling you, if you have the requirement of this, then only use all of these things. If you don't have requirement, don't put all the things at once and create a messy website. Create a good website using all of these things, right? Toggle, you can use toggle as well. Using toggle, you can put toggle button here, right? So toggles can be used. Then you have checkboxes, right? Checkboxes, directly you have checkbox type. So input type checkbox. You have radio buttons like this. In radio buttons HTML, we just had only a little round button where you have to click a radio. But here, entire radio button is changed. If you want to add a radio button, you can just go back, remove all of this thing, control save, go back. You can see this is a radio button now. Correct? But when you use a HTML, the radio button was very different. So let me add a radio button here. Input type equals radio. Correct? Let me close it. Radio. Right? So let me close this. You can see the radio button was like this when you use HTML, right? But when you're using a Bootstrap, this becomes your radio button. So there is a major difference between normal HTML and CSS and your Bootstrap. But here also this type will be taken in Bootstrap. Why? Because this type exists. You can see radio type already exists. Correct? So if you want checkbox, you can just add checkbox already exists. So just go back. So this will become a checkbox. Correct? In normal HTML CSS, you don't get like this. Why? Because since I have used CDNs here of Bootstrap, this particular checkbox will be taken from here. It will not be a normal HTML or a CSS. It will be taken from here, and that is why you are getting output something like this. But in normal HTML, you won't get like this. That this stylings will not be available in normal HTML. So this is the difference between a checkbox. You have different methods. Now JavaScript methods can also be used. Toggle methods, dispose methods. In console you can do that. In your normal programming you can do that, right? So checkbox, you have check. I just showed you checkbox. So when I click on it, it becomes checked. When I come back, it is unchecked. So this is what you can do using checkbox. Now you have, next you have button groups. Now you can see these are the button groups. I just told you radio button is a button group, right? The same thing you have done it here, left, mid, right. This is already done. next thing is your button toolbar. Now you can actually add different toolbars button. You can see I'll just copy this entire statement. I'll just remove all of these things. Control save, copy, go back and check the output. You can see entire button list is added here, right? This you can use for scrolling the web pages to next page. For example, you would have seen in Google Images, you'll have to click a button to go to the next page. In a website, you'll have to click a button to go to the next page, right? So you can use this for that particular statements, right? So if you want this particular thing, you can just add you can see all these things are available here. You can just add input group text. Let me copy this and show you the output. Copy, see the output. You can add, and text can be added here. You can add, right? So all this text can be added here, right? So how exactly this works? Let me check. This is the button type which you already seen, so we'll not go about it. But here there is something called input group. This is the main class. Under that you have prepend. Under that you have text, right? Button group 2 is an ID. All these things are available in Bootstrap. You don't have to create an ID for it, right? So all these things are here. Form control is given. This is basically used in form controls, in forms. Particularly if you want some text to be entered, you can use this particular statement and you can do that, right? So this was about the button group. And yes, you have some more button groups available. The sizing, yes, sizing is very important, right? So not every time you want this much huge button, so you can size it as well according to your needs. Let me just copy paste it, go back. Yes, you can see the buttons over here, right? So why I'm getting this, because I've used this. If you want to put anything inside that, you can put TL, control save, go back. You can see TL here, correct? So you can put the sizings as well directly there. Then you have nestings. You can put drop down links as well, right? So drop down is actually one more topic, so let us not touch about drop down here, right? So next comes vertical buttons. Yes, this is very important. We did buttons with this one, right? So horizontal. To use vertical, you can just add this button group equals vertical. So let me copy it here. Button group, here you can add vertical. Control save. You can see vertical buttons has been given here, right? So all these things are very simple. You can just add the classes, different classes. If you want horizontal, remove this, control save. This is horizontal. If you want it to be vertical, paste this vertical, and it is vertical. Okay, so this is very, you can see this is also vertical here, because this is an entire class. I've created a division here. So this inside the division, all these buttons are there, all these input groups are there. So that is why you're getting it here. If I close the division class here, so let me close the division class. Now see, this is a different thing. Correct. So that is how you can make the changes here using, these are all basic HTML, but you are using Bootstrap to create your projects here. So right, so this was about your button group. Now you can see the drop downs, we'll see it later, right? So this was about your buttons. Now if you want, you can go to different options. If you want, some examples are also given here. You can see download examples, pricing, all these things you can find it for free as well. You can contribute here also. When you go to contribute, when you click on that particular button here, you can contribute. opencollective.com/bootstrap. You can contribute. You can become a contract contributor, $100 or $5. If you want to do a donation, you can do that, right? So let us check some different options which are there. Expos. These are the expos which are available here, right? So all these things are created using Bootstrap, right? So you can create your own Bootstrap and you can paste it here for other people to watch it. Now we have icons, right? Icons we'll do in the next class, but we'll just see what icons. You can see different icons which are available already in Bootstrap, right? So you can use all of these things. So let me do it in the next class, right? So next you have blocks. Now blocks, let us study blocks. Blocks is nothing but people who write blogs. You can find it here. You can see all the blogs which are written here, right? So anything you can do that. So in documentation, it is very important to understand what are the requirements, JavaScript, individual or compiled, you want it to be compressed or uncompressed. Now all these things are available here. You will just have to go through it once so that you will understand what exactly is Java Bootstrap and how it is used. You have utilities here, right? So all these things are already available here, right? So you can use all of these things. Now here border colors, if you want to give a border, correct? So all these things are available here. Now let us study about this in the next class. Alright, so we are in the components now. So in the next class we will be learning about all the other components which are available.